This is another episode of Real Talks with Rechie, Season 2, Episode 10. Well, thank you so much for joining, Isabelle.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm so pleased to have you here. One, because you have such a rich background, an incredible career, and I just want to learn a little bit more about Isabelle.
Get ready.
Yeah. Well, you've had, as I mentioned, an incredible career. I was wondering what attracted you to join the BDC.
As you know, I was in Paris when this opportunity arose, and it was right in the midst of the pandemic. And being a diplomat, I was a diplomat in France, and serving my country at that time made me realize that maybe I was not done serving my country. That's the first element. The second element, I wanted to contribute to making sure that our Canadian economy would not only survive the pandemic, but that the economy would become stronger out of the pandemic. So when the BDC opportunity came my way, I thought that the stars were aligned. And honestly, Minister, I have to say that having worked at Sun Life, the financial sector is one that I really like. So all combined, I think that it was the right timing, though I highly appreciated Paris and France.
Of course.
But this opportunity was the perfect one at the perfect timing, and it's been 4 years, and I have no regrets.
Yeah, and I remember when we first met, one of the first things you did coming into BDC was you took a look at the values. And I remember going to your Montreal headquarters, and I saw the values on the wall, the new, almost pared down, very focused version of these values. And I thought, wow, it takes a tremendous courage and leadership to do something like that, because you're saying, okay, I'm here. How do we put all our energy into these core values? I wanted to share, I wanted you to share your how you arrived at the final values that you created for BDC.
Oh, that was quite a journey. That's not an easy thing to do, because you know that you do decide for a long period, and those values, they need to be aligned to the strategy. It needs to be aligned to what you do day in, day out, but also you need to make sure that everyone is rallying around those values. So when we started, we thought, it's going to take us 3 to 6 months and we're going to be done. So we've started the executive team thinking about what should our values be. And then out of a strat session, maybe 2 or 3 hours, we were done, Minister. And then our HR colleague said, we're going to do a W approach, whereby we will go and test into the organization if what you have decided are the right values. Then they did the W, and then we got a reality check. First of all, we had too many values. Second, I don't think that we had picked the right words. Some of the values did not resonate as much as we thought. And that, Minister, when your colleagues are saying, I don't think it's perfect yet, you need to listen, and you need to go back and work at it again and again. But what I told my colleagues at the executive team, we did not succeed, and we're probably not the ones that should develop the values. So we've delegated the responsibility to our colleagues across the organization. Wow. And we did many W approaches, and it took us 18 months. It took us more than a year to pick the right ones. First of all, we were challenged no more than 3, as you saw on the wall. And I had numerous conversations with many colleagues into the organization. The one where I was non-negotiable is the one around courage. we're at a moment where we need to take big decisions and courageous decisions. So I was non-negotiable about one of the three, and the two others became what it became with the help of so many colleagues. And now it's in our day-to-day, and it does resonate very well with almost everyone. I say almost everyone, Minister, because it's impossible to get to 100% support at all time. But I would say that we are probably at 90% of full engagement from everyone into the organization.
That's fantastic. So you came in, new leadership. I love that you took the values, or you started with someplace, but realized very quickly that, oh, we need to bring in everyone else. And you brought in the teams, you brought in everyone that it would help contribute to it, and you finally pared it down to those key, your key values that you have now today. And much like yourself, I was in corporate banking, or like in the corporate world anyway. Then I pursued, as you know, like became an entrepreneur, discovering my creative passion, baking my daughter's first birthday cake. And you too also have the same equivalent passion of supporting entrepreneurs, especially the teams I've met through BDC. And they put so much energy into helping our incredible entrepreneurs. So first I want to say happy 80th anniversary. That is an incredible milestone for any organization to achieve such a big milestone. And I'm so excited for like what's to come. So for small businesses, I mean, how has that journey been like now that you've been in the role? And maybe can you share some of the incredible work that BDC does to support entrepreneurs?
Well, thank you for mentioning our birthday and our 80th birthday. And we have to remember what and why we were created 80 years ago. So 80 years ago, the Canadian government decided at the offset of the Second War that they would create that bank that would help soldiers becoming entrepreneurs. So 80 years ago, BDC had 26 employees, and we were, not you and I, but they were traveling across the country in a camper van. Not anymore, but 80 years ago, that was it. And they worked to meet soldiers to try to convince them to become entrepreneurs, because there was not a lot of their future coming back to Canada. So we have to remember this, Minister, when we think about today and the future, why we do exist. Now we have 3,000 employees across Canada, no more camper vans, but offices across Canada, and serving more than 100,000 clients across the country. It makes me very proud, Minister, because when I joined 4 years ago, we were serving 65,000 clients. Wow. And you know what? I was not so impressed with the 65,000 because I was comparing the 65,000 to the 1.1 million SMEs in Canada. Yeah. Not true that all SMEs are for BDC to support, but still, I thought that the ratio was low. And I recommended to my team that we should go on a growth path, and one of our objectives should be to serve more clients, but not any clients. Serve more of the SMEs that are not being supported by other financial institutions, and especially some in segments that are underrepresented. We think about women, Black entrepreneurs, Indigenous entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs in regions and rural regions. The growth over the last 5 years have been happening within those segments. Wow. And it makes me very, very proud. It makes me proud to see that we can change the life of a dreamer that would become a doer and that would contribute not only to his or to her wealth, but to our Canadian economy. So mainly we are dedicated to the smaller end of SMEs, not to say that we don't support all sizes, but when we look at the volume of our activities, those are smaller companies that we help and that we support through lending them money, giving them advisory services, or even investing into their businesses.
Yeah, you touched on a lot of things. One thing I'll mention is, first of all, thank you for the history lesson. I served on the Veterans Committee for 2 years, and I gained such a profound appreciation for our veterans. So I love that BDC actually started by helping our soldiers. And then you touched on the importance of really supporting underrepresented groups. When I was an entrepreneur and I started off, like I had to bootstrap my my company. I was fortunate because I was working full time, plus taking care of kids, etc. But I had the means to like put into my business. Not everyone does. And I love the supports for women entrepreneurs especially. And I think with our government too as well, with our $7 billion investment, as you know, with our women entrepreneurship strategy, our Black entrepreneurship strategy, supports for 2S LGBTQI plus entrepreneurs as well as Indigenous entrepreneurs, that potential, you're tapping into all these groups and empowering them to contribute to our incredible economy. And you've just kind of highlighted the importance of doing that. What do you think is, like, why do you think it's important to do it? And maybe share some of like success stories that you've seen. I mean, you've been, you know, BDC has been there to support entrepreneurs, 200 million of which is going to the Black entrepreneurs. Maybe share some highlights that you've seen.
It makes me very proud that we do play where others are not playing. Until they do. I think that what BDC is doing is first helping entrepreneurs, but also showing leadership to other financial institutions to say, maybe on paper, those entrepreneurs, they show more risks than other entrepreneurs, but why don't you try? And why don't you go and meet with those entrepreneurs, speak with them, support them, and get some experience around those groups that you don't know that much. So that's what I was able to bring into BDC, believing in what we don't know yet. So when I joined, BDC was very good at doing what they knew at doing. I've invited them to dream bigger and to say, what if? What if we would stretch our knowledge and our expertise and our experience to go and reach and meet with entrepreneurs that today are underrepresented in every financial institution's portfolio? I'll give you one example. I was at a conference earlier this week where they invited the CEO of SheerTex. SheerTex, the super nylon that now based in Montreal. The CEO was on stage saying, can you just imagine an entrepreneur pitching to funds and investors that are mainly men, that you're trying to raise money to create nylons. And the reason I mention this is that us having like a favorable BA in favor of women, we're bringing more women to the table to take decisions, we're listening differently. We were the first investor in that company because we had a program dedicated to women-led companies that was called Women Tech. And honestly, that's what leadership is all about. It's not only deploying capital, but it's putting the right kind of tension and pressure into our sector so that we bring more women, more Black, more Indigenous people, not only on the side of the entrepreneurs, but also who are making decisions in favor of those entrepreneurs. I see every day, or I get calls every week from women entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs, telling me, thank you for believing not in what we do, but in who we are. And it makes a huge difference. You know very well, when someone invests their trust in you, it gives you an empowerment level that is quite powerful. So it makes me very, very proud that we were able to get just a little bit more ambitious on what we can do, not only better, but more. And I'm driving my team to go and serve more and more and more clients. Yeah. There's about 400,000 SMEs, entrepreneurs in Canada today that are not getting the support they need.
Wow.
So it's our task to go and meet them and see what we can do for them and with them.
One of the things that I love is BDC actually has an inclusive entrepreneurship team, meaning a team that is dedicated to helping inclusive entrepreneurship. That's leadership right off the bat. Second, you touched on kind of all the many different ways that BDC differentiates themselves from your traditional brick and mortar bank that's out there. One, you're helping small businesses specifically. You're doing the outreach, meeting them where they are, but you're also providing them with not just capital and loans, but that advisory services. Because sometimes, like we, as entrepreneurs, I was a baker. I loved the baking. I may not have loved all the other stuff like planning and building numbers. So BDC offers those advisory services and helps the entrepreneur where they are with building their plan, for example, and then helps them kind of on their way to get the funds that they need. But I've met with many entrepreneurs who have been supported by BDC, whether you're just starting, whether you're kind of like ready to grow, or whether you're ready to scale. And SheerText, by the way, I love SheerText. I have a few pairs myself. That's an incredible success story of there's an entrepreneur who was audacious and says, I'm going to find a more sustainable way to create a product that won't annoy us and solves a problem that we all have. Yeah, so in terms of the opportunity though, statistically 18% of women, like if we talk about from the venture capital space, because BDC plays a huge role in this, 18% of women, are women founders. 23% are underrepresented groups, but only 2% of women entrepreneurs are recipients of the VC funds. And
this is sad.
It is.
It is sad, and data speaks. And like I would not be shy to debate with anyone that this is unacceptable. And on top of this, Minister, when we digged into our data to see the performance of the loans of women-led companies, they're doing way better than men-led companies. So there's enough data to show us and to tell us that enough is enough and that we need to bring more capital or the accessibility of capital to women and other groups. You were not there, I was not there, but we can only imagine 12 years ago when my predecessor decided maybe we should create a fund dedicated to women. At the time, there was a lot of naysayers. Many people said, you're going to lose money, you will never find enough opportunities, and this is not banking, but we should probably just give them grants instead of investment or a loan. 12 years into the making, we now have the most important platform in the world dedicated to women-led companies with $500 million. And honestly, I lobbied hard internally not to go like with 200 or 300 million, but I said to the team, why not $500 million? There's enough opportunities there, and history is showing that we are right. We need to do the same thing with Black entrepreneurs, Indigenous entrepreneurs, and who else? If BDC is not taking those risks, who will? And again, we do play where others are not until they do. Right. Now there's many investors playing into the woman-led companies sector. We hope we will have the same leadership with other underrepresented groups. Back to your point on non-financial support. We are the only bank in Canada offering not only financial support, but advisory services. When we look at the performance of an entrepreneur and his or her company that has both a loan and advisory services from BDC, performance of that company is way stronger, growth is faster and more sustainable than a client that would have only a loan with us. So it says a lot about the power and the value of not only financial support, but also non-financial support.
For sure. And I want to thank you for being such a key partner in delivering our venture capital funds. And I recently announced the Venture Capital Catalyst Initiative Inclusive Growth Stream, and those recipients, we are reinvesting another $200 million towards VCCI, which is tremendously important. And I'll share a quick story. I attended an event and I met a small business entrepreneur. He started off being one of the receivers of the venture capital funds for his business, and he was telling me he started off really small, but he took those funds and then his business exploded. And it was able to really take him from the bottom and it took him to the top. So his business exploded, he was doing well, he was able to sell off that business and then ended up becoming, on the other side, he became a founder. A VC founder, and then he has now, with his original investment, has been able to now say, I'm at the opportunity to then invest in so many others, and this, like, what we're really creating is an ecosystem of support. And I have never met an entrepreneur who's not willing to give back to other entrepreneurs, and that's the beauty of supporting the larger ecosystem. Now, BDC doesn't just help us with the venture capital funds, of course. You have also tremendously supported us with our very successful Canada Digital Adoption Program. You were there to help entrepreneurs receive those $100,000 loans, interest-free.
Interest-free.
Yeah, interest-free was very popular, I must say.
Well, I have to say that this 0% interest was it was the first decision I took when I joined. I remember I was sitting with the board in August 21. The government just had announced the CDAP program, and I said to the board, I said, if we're serious on getting high adoption on this program, I think that we should go with 0% interest rate. They all looked at me, Minister, and they said, oh my God, you're not a banker. And I said, well, maybe I'm a development banker, but and we will not be able to do this for many other programs. But I'm a strong believer in the fact that digital adoption was pretty slow in Canada.
Yes.
When we compare our productivity level, it's kind of a shame. What can we do to convince more and more entrepreneurs to go and adopt digital technology? And it makes me proud. Of course, we won't be able to do 0% everywhere, and because let's keep in mind that we are self-sustaining financially, but I think that it played a huge role on the high level of uptake of this program by entrepreneurs.
And I'll share a story. I went to Calgary, met Local Laundry, this incredible company who's doing great things out there. So they took advantage of CDAP. They received the loans, they got the plan from their advisor, and they were so happy to be able to really transform their business digitally. Now their sales are like, they've shot through the roof. And I'm just really happy with the success that we're seeing. One, again, in order for businesses to feel like they can pivot into that, digital adoption world, because it's daunting, it's scary, but give them the confidence of the zero interest really kind of propelled them to say, okay, I can do this, I can change and transform my business, and now they're reaping the rewards. And the program has already benefited well over 600,000 entrepreneurs across Canada, and we are starting to see really positive trends of companies. I've seen various different reports. Businesses are now using multiple channels to reach different businesses. They're not necessarily relying on your brick and mortar store, et cetera.
That's one of the positive collateral effect of the pandemic, whereby all companies pre-pandemic that said digital is not for us. Clients would prefer to come in our store and our products are not suited for a digital platform. Well, to survive during the pandemic, you needed to have a digital presence. And really the pandemic accelerated the adoption also, plus the 0%. But the pandemic showed to many entrepreneurs that thought it's not for me, that it was for them. So hopefully the adoption will keep on rising because we're not done.
For sure.
And the next step is AI.
Yes.
We need to convince SMEs to quickly introduce, integrate AI at a small scale, but AI components into their day-to-day.
And we're helping entrepreneurs pivot because now they're going digital and now they're leveraging artificial intelligence. We're investing $2.4 billion into the AI space, 200 million dedicated to small business startups, and 100 million dedicated to helping take those ideas but actually implementing it and making that business more productive. But one of the things I recently saw you did during Small Business Week is you launched something really cool. It's the Canadian Small Business Health Index. Right. Now, this index is really great. I mean, you've been able to pull together many different sources of data, which makes it a stronger index. But explain to us why you felt it was important to launch something like that for small businesses.
It was important for us. First of all, the partnership with Equifax was a strategic one. Equifax does own a lot more data than we have. And we had that instinct that our data was not enough to explain the trend and to predict the trend ahead. So we sat down, I personally sat down with the CEO of Equifax and I said, why don't we dream big and see, bringing our database together, how could we help key decision makers and entrepreneurs to explain what's going on and what could be the near future. So it was all about giving confidence to entrepreneurs, but also feeding the minds of key decision makers so that we can keep on making the right decisions for our entrepreneurs so that they keep on growing and why not become global companies. So that was the driver behind this idea. And then our chief economist started working together. The beautiful output of this, Minister, of course, is the end result, but is seeing collaboration between two organizations owning a lot of knowledge, but bringing an additional tool for both entrepreneurs and decision makers.
Yeah, and we saw, so I looked at the trend graph and you can see how it dipped for a while, with the high interest rates, high inflation. But now that inflation has dropped 1.6% and then interest rates came down another 50 basis points, down again further, it's giving, you can see the trend of entrepreneurs like having a little bit more positive hope, and it's starting to trend upward, which is very
reinvesting, or at least showing a growth of interest of reinvesting. I feel out of this index today that there's a positive trend, and hopefully that positive posture will keep on getting better and better, and we'll be back on track.
Well, our economic plan is working with partnerships like BDC. It's helping so many incredible small and medium-sized enterprises. We talked about amazing examples of how we're able to do that. But I was wondering, it's your 80th anniversary. I heard you had a time capsule. Is that true? Were you able to open it up?
Imagine, some of our colleagues 25 years ago decided to put in a box some key elements that would remind everyone what the business was all about 25 years ago. I did not know that, Minister. And at one point, one of my colleagues came in my office and said, Isabelle, I found a huge box downstairs on which it was written not to be open before 2023. And here we are in 2024. So I brought the executive team together and said, we will open the box. We smiled, we laughed, we had a lot of fun. You know, we found things that were not surprising, few others. It was, and I said to my colleague, we need to do the same thing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you.
For the 100th anniversary, we will not be there, but we should put, but now we don't know if we'll put like physical things into a box
Digital things.
or a digital version. But here's the deal. In 20 years, what will
The
be
technology.
the technology? So in that box that we opened, we found diskette and
Yeah.
VHS. Wow, we have no more the technology to read or to look on what was on the diskette or the VHS, but we'll find a way
Yeah.
to put in a box envelope or somewhere a few key elements of this year, so that in 20 years they will open it and smile and have fun.
Yeah, well, that's exciting. And, you know, you've had, again, we talked about your amazing career, all of the things that you're doing at BDC. Thank you very much for your leadership. But I mean, like, what advice can you impart on to an entrepreneur who's, you know, looking to start their own business, or any advice that you can give, especially at this point in time?
Keep on being highly ambitious. See the globe as your market and not only your own community. Come knock on our door and be ambitious with us and put a lot of pressure on us so that we can support you and that we can next year say that we're now serving 125,000 clients and that the growth will keep on going faster and faster. But we're there for the dreamers and doers of Canada, and we want to feel the pressure, and we want to feel the ambition, and we want to be there to support more and more entrepreneurs.
That's really great advice. My favorite is thinking outside of your local area and thinking bigger. And I think entrepreneurs that are able and capable of doing that will certainly accelerate in this country.
And digital gives you the world as a market.
Agreed. Thank you so much, Isabelle, for being here. This conversation, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm sure many of our listeners will be able to benefit from it as well. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci pour l'invitation.